Welcome to Getting to Know You. Getting to know a new person relatively here at Stonebridge, and a new person who is taking on a responsibility to be a candidate for the Residents Association Executive Committee. Welcome to Elisabeth Fraser, and I want to make one little note here about her name. I have a daughter named Liza, and she always has to say Liza with a Z. So to remember that, switch it around, and when you meet Elisabeth Fraser, it's Elisabeth with an S, and the Fraser with an S. And at Stonebridge, that can get a little confusing, but we won't go into that. So welcome, Elisabeth, to be here with us today. We usually start with tell us a little something about how you got here, and maybe that starts with the place. But I have to say, when you're finished telling us about your schooling, if you would like to, and where you got your first professional experiences, I think people will begin to pick up on one particular word. So tell us where you grew up.
Okay. So I grew up outside of London near the Heathrow Airport. It's the simplest way of describing it.
We've all been there.
Yes, yes. And was fortunate to have be at some very good schools, and discovered that I liked and was moderately good at mathematics. And so finished up going to Imperial College in London for a math degree. That led me to go to Cambridge at that time. This was 1963. And I did a one-year course in computing at that time.
That was real early. Was it early for
was
women?
It was very early. There were other women on the course,
Yeah.
but we were outnumbered. It was very early computing. It was the second generation of computer there. They had built it. It occupied 2 large rooms, and you got to know a great deal about the fundamentals of computing at that time. So I did that, and then
And was that one of those really big computers that took up a whole room?
took up 2 large rooms.
Yeah.
And you could see it. You could touch it.
Yeah.
And so that a lot of the ambiguity, if you like, these days where you can't see what's going on,
Right.
you could see what was going on. So that was, I think, very helpful.
Right.
I was invited to go be a programming assistant in the engineering department in the university. Finished up, that morphed into some teaching work. In that same period of time, I met my husband, and he planned to come over to Bell Labs, and it was a complex time in our lives for different reasons. I went to Canada for a couple of years and did much the same work that I have been doing in the engineering department. We got married and I came to New Jersey.
And all along there was the math and the computing
And teaching.
And teaching. 3 things, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that seems to be my genetic makeup.
Right. So having landed in New Jersey, you landed at a very special place in New Jersey, up in Morris County.
Yes, actually it was, I was actually in, we lived in Bernardsville. So I was at the north end of Somerset County,
Right.
whereas we're now at the south end of Somerset County.
Yeah.
But after raising children, I was invited to go and teach at the Peck School in Morristown. So that became Morris County.
And taught math
I taught math.
computing.
I ran the computing department initially, then took over the math department as well, doing both. And it was a heady time. In fact, all of that younger time. There was a lot of development going on. When I went into the school, we had just a few Apple IIs. And by the time I left 18 years later, the entire school was networked. There were computers throughout. we were early adopters of a laptop program.
Yeah.
So a lot of change.
So you saw a lot of change in your
Yes.
lifetime.
Yes, but in with that, we had to teach the teachers how to be
Of course.
comfortable with the computers.
Mhm.
And that kind of leads me to where I am now.
Right, we're teaching people to be comfortable.
Same deal.
But you and your husband then worked together here closer to,
When we both retired in 2002, he wanted to continue doing some research. And so we set up a tiny research lab here on Nassau Street and had interns in the summertime. And we closed that down in about 2009. And sadly, his Alzheimer's took over. And so eventually that needed him to be in care, and I came here.
right, and here you are, welcome.
Yes.
Well, there's one little side thing that I think was interesting when we were talking, and that is, as a volunteer, you got involved in a very big conservation effort in New Jersey that was really the pathway for saying we need to think about where is the appropriate kinds of activities to have. And maybe you'd like to tell us why Newark Airport is where Newark Airport is, not some other place.
I wasn't directly involved in that. I came just after that. It had been done. But I did arrive in New Jersey at a point where in the early 70s, everybody was trying to figure out natural resource inventories. And a friend of mine who was already involved in doing that, and I basically did a lot of work on figuring out how to do that. And as is my my genetic makeup, we taught several courses on how to do that.
Yeah, that was sort of the birth of the local environmental commissions.
Yes, it was.
And
Yes.
and what I was referring to was the proposal by the Port Authority to build an airport in this wonderful swampy area
Yes.
near you in Morris Township
Yes, yes.
that people thought,
Yes.
based on the kinds of data that you were probably helping, that you finally afterwards helped people.
Yes, it was. I suspect that the project to fight the airport generated this need for understanding the layers of the environment, the natural environment, and developing at that point physical maps to overlay so you could isolate different properties.
Right. Well, let's jump up to the current day
Yes.
and the future here at Stonebridge, because you've been involved with the technical assistance group, but
Yes.
now it's getting to be even more organized.
Well,
Can you explain what you're currently going to be operating?
right. So the tech committee has been going for quite a while. It's been through various forms, if you like, groups and so on. And when I moved in 18 months ago, they were just regenerating it. Tony Locklow and I think Jock and Neil O'Leary were putting it back together. And I showed up and I said, yes, I'd like
I know how to do
that. So for a year, we responded to everybody's requests. And then Tony came to me and said, would I be willing to take over? And I said yes. With conversations, it was clear that we had all realized that there was a lot of need, desire for more help, more education from the residents. And so from that has been born.
I think you said when we started this that people were coming and asking questions. People wanted a problem solved. And it seems like now they simply want to have a better understanding.
Yes.
So that they can feel more comfortable and maybe solve some of their own problems.
Yes.
Is that sort of the
and that's
idea?
beginning to happen. I had somebody who's been in one of the groups, one of the classes, came to me and said, you know, as a result of the class, I managed to figure something out for myself. And
that's what a teacher wants.
She was really pleased about that, and I was really pleased about that. So, that's and another point that I've made before publicly
Mm-hmm.
is that we are being forced to use these devices.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a concert on Sunday, and there wasn't a program.
Mm-hmm.
We had to look it up on our phones. But our generation, and I'm sort of generalizing, it's as if we've been put in the deep end
Mm-hmm.
and asked to swim, but maybe you don't have a life vest, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important, and I think it's really important that people feel comfortable acknowledging that they're not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
They just have never had to use it to this degree.
Yeah.
And now they are being required to.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're trying to respond and
Right. And I think they've probably seen from their own children that because they know the instrument, they're so much more agile at using it, and we just never had that chance.
they just play with it.
Yeah.
They just play with it.
Right.
It's a little bit like, and I know this sounds sexist, it's a little bit like little boys playing with trucks.
Mm-hmm.
When they get a bit older, they know how to back up a truck,
Mm-hmm.
which is not intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you play with, cars or trucks or whatever as a child, you just learn that.
Yeah.
And the young people, we in school we called them native speakers,
Mm-hmm.
and they are native speakers. It's just part of their their choice.
Mm-hmm.
They just play.
So just briefly, if somebody wants to get involved in one of these, where is the notice for it, or how do you sign up? Or
In the activity book,
Mhm.
down across from the mailbox, there is a slot in there, the tab 3, and you just sign in, and we have a wonderful tech committee.
Mhm.
And if I might, I just want to be sure that I get everybody.
Okay, yeah, let's name them. This is the
Yes.
honor roll of tech.
Absolutely. It's a very hard-working group.
Okay.
So it's Ann Bastian, Debbie Swain, Neil O'Leary, Tony Glockler, Jock McFarlane, Stan Katz, Peter Zifra, Jeff Green, and Jeff Tenner is our liaison. A very hard-working group.
And so they take on different,
So
they take on Apples and Samsung and.
Yes, we're not so good on the Samsung phones.
Mhm.
We're trying to learn. But 2 of us are on call every week.
Mhm.
One Apple person, one PC person.
Mhm.
And so we try to respond pretty quickly, and I think we do.
Mhm.
And we're looking to just be responsive and responsive to what people need.
Well, thank you so much. Well, we can see what happens if you live outside Heathrow Airport. Maybe you learned a little bit.
You have to leave.
Yeah, no, you have to leave. I was thinking you might have learned something from the new technology. But
Well,
thank
that's
you
good.
very much, Elisabeth, for being with us today.
Well,
Thank you for being willing to stand for election. We do that
Yes.
here in May. And also helping us understand a little bit more about how people can learn more about a device that they're using all the time and may not really understand it.
Yes.
We can get some clarity to that.
Yes.
So thank you again for being with us today for this, and then thank you for serving us so well here at Stonebridge.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.